Shokaku outlasted air raids, limped home from the Battle of the Coral Sea, and survived Pearl Harbor. Yet on June 1944, 3 submarine torpedoes triggered a fuel vapor explosion so violent that one of Japan's strongest carriers vanished within minutes. Her wreck location remains unconfirmed to this day. How can a loss so well witnessed still hide its final evidence? To understand why, we need to examine the ship's design and operational reality that created her survivor legend, and then reconstruct the sequence of torpedo damage, hangar deck fire, fuel vapor buildup between decks, and the catastrophic internal explosion that most likely ended her. Inside Shokaku, engineering ambition met the hard limits of carrier warfare. Her skeleton rose in layers, a flight deck nearly 260 meters long, 2 enclosed hangar decks stacked below, and a web of fuel lines and vent trunks that crisscrossed the heart of the ship. The upper hangar, stretching almost the full length of the hull, stood about 5 meters high, sealed with steel fire doors and heavy shutters. Below that, the lower hangar mirrored its dimensions, separated by an armored deck meant to blunt bomb strikes but not immune to fire or fumes. Aviation gasoline, the lifeblood of carrier air groups, flowed from tanks deep in the hull, routed through centralized trunks running along the ship's centerline and starboard side. These pipes fed fueling stations in both hangar decks, their path rising through armored bulkheads and weaving behind the elevator wells. With a total capacity of over 400,000 liters, the fuel system was both a marvel and a menace. Pressurized lines, exposed risers, and vent pipes climbed to the stack. Any rupture in this system, especially near the hangar, could flood compartments with vapors faster than damage control teams could respond. Ventilation, intended to clear exhaust and fumes, relied on dozens of shafts and forced blowers. In theory, these trunks could sweep away danger. In practice, when fire or battle damage warped the steel, airflow reversed or stagnated. Fumes pooled above the armored deck or drifted up to the flight deck, invisible and deadly. Fire mains and sprinkler loops ran parallel to the fuel lines, but a torpedo or bomb hit in the wrong place could knock out both suppression and containment. The result was a ship designed for high-tempo operations, but always one spark away from disaster. Shokaku's blueprint promised strength, yet it carried within it the seeds of a rapid, cascading loss should fire and fuel ever meet unchecked. Shokaku entered the Pacific War as one of Japan's most advanced carriers, but her reputation was forged not just by her design, but by what she survived. In May 1942, during the Battle of the Coral Sea, dive bombers from USS Yorktown punched 2 1,000-pound bombs through her flight deck. Fires raged, 223 crew were killed or wounded, and the ship's air group scattered to other decks and even to Zuikaku. Yet Shokaku's hull held. She limped back to Japan for repairs, missing the crucial Battle of Midway and returning to sea less than 3 months later. This pattern repeated. In August 1942, she was back in action at the Battle of the Eastern Solomons, launching sorties as American and Japanese fleets clashed off Guadalcanal. By October, at the Battle of Santa Cruz, Shokaku was again under attack, but this time escaped direct hits while her sister ships suffered. Each time, dockyard crews patched her hull, replaced scorched plating, and restored her decks. The cycle, damage, repair, return, became her legend. But the cost went beyond steel. Every battle thinned her veteran pilots and mechanics. After Santa Cruz, Zuikaku and another carrier had to retreat, not because of damage, but because there simply were not enough trained aircrew left to keep the flight decks busy. By 1943, Shokaku remained a formidable hull, but her air group was a shadow of its early war strength. The ship could be rebuilt after every hit. The men who made her dangerous could not be replaced so quickly. By 1944, the question hung over every sortie: was Shokaku still a true fleet carrier, or just a survivor carrying fewer and fewer veterans into battles she could no longer win? June 1944 found the Imperial Japanese Navy on the defensive, facing a crisis in the Central Pacific. Admiral Toyoda's command had just received word of American carrier strikes against the Marianas. The response was swift. Operation Ago, a fleet sortie intended to force a decisive battle, was launched. Shokaku sailed as part of this last major carrier force, but the odds were already tilting against her. Japanese planners expected the next American blow to fall on the Carolines, not the Marianas. Airfields near the fleet's new forward base were unfinished, leaving pilots with little training time and no chance to rehearse complex operations. American carriers, meanwhile, operated with the advantage of radar, directed fighter control, and a seasoned air arm. Their early warning systems could spot incoming raids at distances the Japanese could not match. In contrast, Japanese scouting efforts faltered, reconnaissance planes missed key enemy movements, and the fleet's ability to coordinate long-range strikes broke down under pressure. The gap in detection meant the Japanese task force would be exposed before it could strike effectively. Submarines, too, waited in the Philippine Sea, tracking the likely approach lanes. With every mile, the risk of surprise attack grew. The Japanese fleet pressed on, but the invisible net was tightening. Shokaku's position in the formation, her speed, and the need to launch and recover aircraft would soon make her vulnerable in ways that no amount of armored steel could prevent. Lieutenant Commander Herman Kostler, commanding USS Cavalla, watched through the periscope as Shokaku moved steadily across the crosshairs. The Gado-class submarine had stalked the carrier screen for hours, waiting for the right moment when the formation geometry would force the target onto a predictable course. At 11:22 a.m., as Shokaku slowed to recover aircraft, Cavalla's torpedo data computer calculated range, speed, and angle on the bow. 6 Mark 18 torpedoes were loaded, each set for a running depth intended to strike below the armored belt, where fuel lines and machinery crowded the starboard side. The spread was fired in rapid sequence, tubes 1 through 6 with a fan angle designed to cover the carrier length in case she zigged or slowed further. Seconds stretched as the torpedoes raced beneath the waves. Lookouts on Shokaku's escorts missed the telltale wakes until it was too late. At least 3, possibly 4 detonations shook the carrier starboard side in quick succession. The impacts tore open hull sections at frames 103, 144, and 201, locations that Japanese records later matched with flooding, fire, and sudden loss of power across multiple decks. The exact number of hits remains debated, but the effect was immediate. A ship packed with volatile aviation stores was struck amidships while aircraft and fuel lines were exposed. Cavalla's bridge crew logged the time, depth, and bearing, then prepared for the inevitable counterattack. Above them, Shokaku's fate was already in motion, the chain of damage set loose by torpedo geometry and the doctrine of massed spread. At 2:08 in the afternoon, a blast tore through Shokaku's hull, lifting the flight deck and shattering bulkheads from inside out. Gasoline vapor pooled for hours in hangar spaces and ventilation trunks, and it found a spark, likely from exposed wiring or burning debris. Gasoline vapor, the explosion traveled through the ship's core, following the same trunk lines that once carried fresh air, now turned into conduits for fire. Core compartments several decks below erupted in sequence, and the armored deck that once protected the engine rooms buckled under the force. Armored survivors described a thunderous shock, darkness, and a sudden rush of heat and smoke. Thunderous shock. Within minutes, the order to abandon ship echoed through the chaos. Abandon ship. Men scrambled for ladders, some blinded by fumes, others already burned. Ladders. The carrier rolled to starboard and began to slip beneath the surface. Starboard. Out of a crew of nearly 1,900, only about 570 reached the water or were pulled aboard destroyers. Only over 1,200 men vanished with the ship, their loss recorded in a single, irreversible moment. Vanished. The last reported position for Shokaku's sinking stands at 12 degrees 0 minutes north, 137 degrees 46 minutes east, more than 5,000 meters deep in the Philippine Sea. Deep. Decades of naval records, survivor accounts, and Cavalla's patrol report all point to this patch of open water, but no modern survey has published verified imagery of the wreck. Verified imagery. For maritime archaeologists, the challenge begins with the scale of the search box. Wartime coordinates could be off by several miles, and the area covers hundreds of square kilometers. Search. Even with today's multi-beam sonar and deep-rated remotely operated vehicles, scouring such depths for a fragmented hull is a slow and expensive process. Confirmation would demand a clear checklist. Hull length matching. Shokaku-class carriers, elevator openings in the right positions, hangar framing unique to her design, remnants of the island base, damage signatures consistent with starboard torpedo strikes and a major internal blast. Without these markers, any claim remains speculation. The wreck's unconfirmed status leaves open a forensic question. Only a detailed survey, meeting these standards and producing clear, verified imagery, can finally close the file on where Shokaku rests. Survey. Shokaku's grave still eludes modern sonar, even as technology reveals the Pacific's secrets year by year. Each unconfirmed wreck is a reminder. Not every loss leaves a visible trace. In the deep, some stories wait for proof, and some lessons on vulnerability remain unburied. Share your thoughts below.